If Simon showed us the map, our next speaker will show us how to navigate it, as Indian founders building for the world. Rajan, managing partner at Upekkha, has a fascinating contrarian view. Building global companies, specifically AI companies from India, requires a mindset shift, period. He believes 3-member teams can outperform 30-member teams, that domain expertise will be our unfair advantage, and that certain constraints actually accelerate growth. Drawing from Upekkha's experience with dozens of vertical AI startups, Rajan will share the counterintuitive methods that help Indian founders compete globally and win. His session comes with a guarantee you will leave with at least 3 specific changes you can implement immediately. Please put your hands together for Rajan, Managing Partner, Upekkha.
Good morning, everyone. So everything that we know about software business building so far, it's like a floppy disk waiting to be put onto a MacBook. I want you to see this slide. $1.6 billion of revenue. I want to pay attention to this number. This is the AR that has been created by all the vibe coding tool, we may call it AI-assisted tool, and this did not exist 18 months ago. This is Jason Lemkin's tweet from about a week or 2 weeks ago. He's quoting a Koto report where he says that all Cursor and Replit and Lovable, all of that put together crossed about $1.6 billion of revenue. This is the fastest growing category of software, right? And what this means is that this is a dam-breaking moment in terms of how software is going to get built. I was with Brian Belfort. Some of you may know this person. He runs a product consultancy in Silicon Valley. And he was talking to a group of product leaders. And he said, like, what the product leaders have gotten into is into the space where they get involved with what is the product roadmap, how do we align the leadership, what are the customer interviews that we need to have, et cetera, et cetera. And they forgot a very, very important question. And that question is like, how do products win? And I feel that, in India, we've also I had this realization that in India, we've also had a similar fixation with saying, how do we build products from India? And a friend of mine who's a very well-known SaaS founder, he told me a few months ago, he said that, look, the B2C companies in India have actually generated more returns, have actually created more wealth for founders than B2B. We've been talking about creating this B2B product companies, India as a product nation, but we've not been focused on the right question. And the right question is, how do we win? And if you look at B2C companies, which have been focused in the local markets, and they are asking this question about now, how do I replicate Silicon Valley, but how do I win from Bangalore? And they've had a much different, better outcome, right? So what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes is to shift the frame of thinking on asking this question. And when we ask the question, how do we win, as opposed to saying, how do I build products, then maybe the answers will be slightly different. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about how do we have a favorable start, like think about execution slightly differently, differentiation and defensibility that can actually put us in a slightly different path, and ask the question of how do we win from India from a global perspective. So all great companies, they have a secret. They have an unfair advantage. And if this unfair advantage can be at the start, then it'll be great, right? And this is one of the reasons when, as Upekkha 2 years ago, we said, we want to focus on vertical, boring AI as a thesis, or as theme, as many would call it. It was recognizing this fact that Indian founders are great at building applications, and they can actually take care of, the nuances of different use cases. But if they actually focus on building those applications in places that the Silicon Valley incumbents would not want to focus on, then you get a starting advantage. And later today, you will hear Shankar Maruvada, come and talk about saying that, if you actually focus on use cases that are very India-focused, and you can apply AI onto that, then again, you won't get to compete with the Silicon Valley majors. So that will give you like an unfair advantage. So ask this question as to where, if I start, will I find an unfair advantage as compared to people that are there in Valley? The second question that comes up is about differentiation. We need to have a slight different shift in how we think about differentiation. So far, we've been thinking about differentiation of saying that we are existing in a particular category. I'm a better alternative to ServiceNow. But the real change that is happening with AI is that every stack of the every layer of the platform is getting shifted. So therefore, the customers of ServiceNow are no more asking this question, should I buy ServiceNow? They are saying, what is happening with AI? Maybe if I wait for some more time, then things will move away and something will magically solve my problem. So they are not thinking about buying ServiceNow. So if you position yourself against the saying, I'm a better alternative ServiceNow, then you are already working on a game which has moved on. The second aspect of this is you are dealing with incumbents. Incumbents who are moving at the speed of a cheetah. 50-year-old elephants like Microsoft will put a YC company to shame. A few days ago, I saw a demo from Microsoft where they have built some of the best agents. We talk about building agents. They are actually creating 50,000 agents in a day, which is doing automation that you would have expected a software company to do. And on the other hand, we also have this new upstart, which are these platform companies. Anybody that is building on AI is either working on OpenAI or Anthropic. Some of you may be using Llama. But these are what I would like to call as the character from the Greek mythology, Kronos. The moment they say something, they see something is working, they will eat you up, gobble up. They see 100 million ARR is validated, then they'll go build a Claude Code, a coding tool. They see that Palantir is doing really well, then they will OpenAI will build its own forward deployed engineering consulting services. They are not stopped by products. They are thinking about what will it take for it to actually win. Right? So you are dealing with new players who are going to, you are working with them, but they're going to eat you up if you are actually built on top of them. So what do people do? So many people have started looking at saying, one question, how many of you have used Claude Code? Raise of hands. Only about 20%, or maybe 15%.
Taking questions in between or later?
I'm told there are no questions. I will talk, you will take your questions after the session. How many users of Claude Code? Okay, 15%. If there is one takeaway that you have from this conference, just one takeaway, that is, go check out Claude Code. Like I said earlier, it is a dam-breaking moment. Claude Code did not exist 3 months ago. They were like, what Devin promised, Claude Code delivered. Right? I might sound like an influencer on TikTok or Instagram saying that AI is going to sort of change the world, it's going to eat your job. So what I have realized is that I don't believe anything that the AI influencers say. I don't believe the doomers. I don't believe the influencers. Unless I have experienced it myself, I don't believe it. The weekend before last, I created an entire Chrome plugin, which took me just 2 days. And I am someone who touched code only 10 years ago, when Java and Python 2 were popular. And in 2 days, I was able to completely build the Chrome plugin. And what it means is that, what took 6 months got delivered in about 2 days. It is going to change the economics of how software gets built. So if there is just one takeaway that you have, go use Claude Code, and then you will experience how things have fundamentally changed. It is something that has not existed 3 months ago. So many people are piling onto that. Silicon Valley companies, if you actually go to their offices, you will see that everybody has a Claude Code opened up, and then they are building, and they are thinking about software as a Lego block. Now, what Devin or what Claude Code is actually promised and delivered is that you can think about software as a Lego block, and you can build a lot more things. So if you built your SaaS application in the last 2 years, within a week, you will be able to deliver or recreate the same code almost up to about 80 or 90%, right? The second thing is, if you actually are able to do this, and if every startup has the same Claude Code that is available to them, if you all have the same magic tools, then what is the differentiation? The Silicon Valley word that some like, some don't like, is the word called taste. It may sound like a fluffy word, but if you look at the entire software engineering practice that Simon showed, this taste, this point of view is one of those components that won't get commoditized. And if you actually think about it, Claude Code is that vibe, the theme of our conference, the vibe for developer tools. And the vertical that you pick, what you want to be is you want to be the Claude of the vertical. How are you able to create that vibe, that judgment, that is not going to get commoditized. Let's talk a little bit about differentiation, defensibility. We covered differentiation. In defensibility, the first thing that most of us actually think about is oh, if it is AI, then we need data, right? But data defensibility is a little bit of a myth. Data, some type of data is really, really valuable, but many type of data is not. So if you're Salesforce and there is like workflow-related data, then that data is not of any use at all. But if you are building, let's say, radiology AI, and you have like a lot of radiology data, then you can use that to actually give a much better service, build a much better experience in terms of radiology diagnosis, right? So data, it depends. So data, just because you have data doesn't mean that you are able to create defensibility. So in building AI products, there are two skills. One, I would say, is prompts. Prompt engineering was hyped up, and then it died down. And I don't understand why it died down. Today, when somebody is vibe coding or getting an AI system to actually develop things for them, prompt engineering is what is key. So the skill that you need is how do you actually use AI to talk to so how do you use the prompts to talk to the AI to get the outcome that you want? And the judgment and the vibe that you're able to build is what will differentiate. Just because everybody has access to the vibe coding tools doesn't mean that everybody will be able to create sculpture. Everybody has access to the chisel, but then, how do you actually use the chisel to create, the outcome that people will marvel at is where the difference or the craft will be, right? So first, this is prompt engineering. The second part that will actually be the source of defensibility for you is what is called as evals. Eval sounds like a very technical, jargon-sounding concept. What evals means is, if you have a certain input, then what is the output that is well accepted by humans? In the world of SaaS, domain understanding used to mean that do you understand how well a customer is buying inside your domain. That's what domain understanding meant. But in AI, domain understanding takes a slightly different meaning, which is how well do you understand in this domain that you're working at, what input should generate what output. And that is what will differentiate companies from being a one-winning company to another one. Right? The next aspect of defensibility is what can be called as evolution. This is about having a live product. Nitin, one of our founders, he says that, today, because it is so easy for anybody to create a product, if you can just spin up Claude Code and create software, the same SaaS that you had for 2 years in about a few weeks, then what is going to help you differentiate, defend your offering, right? He calls that as his product evolution factor. The products that you have cannot be static. Because the user used the product, the next day, the next week, the next month, it should be different because of the data, usage data that it faced. And if you don't have a product which has an evolution factor of more than 1, then you will easily get disrupted. Let's talk a little bit about some execution aspects. So execution has become a commodity, an aspect that Simon had showed in the Wadley map. Now, earlier it used to be that, we will run faster, we will execute faster, but speed is no more a moat. It has become a table stakes, and it is not a winning strategy. I used to have a mentor many years ago who used to say that the only moat, the only advantage that a startup has is it can run really, really fast. But now if you run really, really fast, someone will copy you as faster. Because you put out a new vibe coding app out there, and then you will find that 15 other people have actually put out the same thing on Twitter and trying to sort of steal attention away from what you have put out, right? So speed is table stakes. What you need is you need to be in the right position. And this is why we got Simon, and a big shout out to Simon. Thank you for coming to the conference. Speed is not a strategy. Speed is not going to give you the advantage. You need to find out in the value chain that you're operating, what position is going to give you that advantage. And you have to do that mapping, that analysis to find out what is going to give you that advantage. The other thing something that we as Upekkha always talk about is that it is important that you capitalize it right to ensure that you're able to win. I see a lot of LinkedIn obituary, people raised $1 million, $2 million, and then they are not able to continue the startup, and then therefore they are shutting it down. There are 2 GTMs that are working at this point in time. One is AI PLG, which means this is the scenario where the user is equal to the buyer. And what it actually shows is that here, if you have user is the buyer, and if you're able to create a magical user experience that leads to word of mouth, fan it with a little bit of influencer marketing, and people are able to get to millions of dollars in a very short span of time. The other is you have to go and talk to a CXO or maybe even the board member. They ask this question of what is our AI strategy. They ask the VP of their different business units on what their AI strategy is, and then they come back and then say, oh, we are trying to actually do knowledge search or something like that. And then that type of conversation is going in. In the former case, you only need about 300K or maybe 500K for you to get to about $5 million of ARR. In the other, you may have to actually capitalize a lot. So if you are somewhere in between, then either you are buying a half ticket to London, or you have used so much capital. When you take venture money, it is like rocket fuel. If you don't become a rocket, then it becomes a rope around your neck. So if you don't capitalize it right, then you have set yourself up for failure. So we've always said that, as Upekkha, we've said that make sure that you've all capitalized right for you to win. The other thing that I would say that every founder, every AI builder must know is what I call as a scaling law. My version of scaling law, if I tell that to a PhD, they will murder me. This is not the rendition from the paper, Kaplan's paper, but my simple version of explaining scaling law is every 6 months, intelligence cost reduces by 10 times, and the effectiveness becomes 30% better. Now, you need to consider this and then make sure that you're building applications that takes this into account, which means that every 6 months, the landscape is changing. Not the climate that Simon talked about, it is the landscape that is changing. Every time Sama tweets, the landscape is changing. Right? So you have to keep that in mind, that the landscape is changing. How do I make sure that I'm different? So therefore, you cannot come up with 5-year roadmap, 5-year projections. You cannot come up with 1-year roadmap. You have to only think about what am I going to do in the next 3 months, next 6 months, and then see that Sama or Mark Zuckerberg or like Daniel Amode are not changing the landscape because they announced a new model. So you can only have a North Star. It sounds like an oxymoronic statement saying, have a North Star, but only for 6 months. But that is what you can afford in the field of AI. Right? This one is going to be very, very unpopular. So therefore, I worded it slightly differently on the slides. But the counterintuitive thing about hiring is that every founder that I talk to, they are like, help me hire an SDR, help me hire an engineer. I don't know how to hire. Like the salaries are blowing up, et cetera, et cetera. But the startups that I'm seeing that are winning really well are first firing half of their team and then growing twice as fast. And this is going to hit really, really hard. But if you want to sort of double your growth, first go fire half of your team. Right? So to summarize, find an unfair start, vertical or niche, globally, like let's say manufacturing, like that's not where someone wants to spend time on, that's not where a Silicon Valley founder wants to spend time on, or on a niche that is very local to India, where again, they don't want to come and compete. The big boys don't want to come and compete. Find the tiniest team, use software as a Lego, make sure that you're able to deliver that particular product and are able to garner attention. Till 5 million ARR, have only 5 people. And one of the things, let me add this, till 6 months ago, I used to tell all the founders, no GPUs before product market fit. But now I tell that after you hit product market fit, make sure that you're grabbing as many resources as possible, including GPUs, because after that, models are going to matter. And this is something that Perplexity and Cursor realized, that once you know that this is fantastic, then the model guys are going to pull the rug under your feet. So make sure that after you hit product market fit, if you are going to find a $1 billion ARR path, make sure that you're raising a lot of money, and investor friends that are present here, if you get to that place, then they'll happily fund you to do that. But after that is where you need to make sure that you get a lot of resources in hand. Be the vibe of your vertical. The reason Claude works, if you actually think about Claude, the folks at Claude did not go out and then say, let's build the best coding tool or best writing tool. They have slight difference. In fact, if you study the architecture, most of them stopped publishing the architecture after, I think, 2024. But if you go and read the system card of Claude, it doesn't say anything that, we train specifically for coding. They only said that we are going to train a little better for making sure that, humans trust us, and, there is better alignment. and making sure that it is going to improve humanity as opposed to just be very focused on just passing the latest benchmarks that are there. That is the only difference between Claude and others, and still it is like performing way ahead. Then today morning I saw that inside Facebook they're going to replace Llama as a coding model to Claude because Claude has become that well. Evolve the products for defensibility. Learn this keyword called evals. This is going to come for the next 10 years. It's the most important thing to build AI products. And make sure that you're focusing on winning against cruel platforms. With that, thank you.